Welcome to the Integration Station. I'm Naturally Ashley, your host, here to guide you down the rabbit hole into the world of psychoactive plants, frogs, and fungi. Hello and welcome back to the Integration Station. I'm Naturally Ashley, your host, here with a dear friend of mine, Barefoot Brian. Brian and I met quite a few years ago in the forest, and we're both barefoot at the time. He might have had rock climbing shoes on, but we did a little bit of climbing and then went foraging for mushrooms. He was so knowledgeable, and we just got talking about foraging and sustainability and nutrition, and he ended up going to nutrition school, and I ended up learning more about, the kind of adventures that he does and getting to know the community that's growing out in his area. So I'm really excited to introduce you guys to him. He's been getting more and more into psychedelics, and he's going to share with us in this episode a bit about his journey so far, specifically with mushrooms and some of his goals ahead. So without further ado, I'll introduce him to you.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network, here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Hello and welcome back to the show, you beautiful souls. It's Ashley here, your host for the Integration Station. I've got a wonderful and dear friend of mine here, Brian, who I've been really looking forward to sharing with you all. I know if you follow me on Instagram or have me in your circle, you know that every once in a while I disappear to Collingwood and go and have some fun going into caves, foraging, all that. And this is the guy that I see when I'm out there. He is just amazing. He always has so much insight when it comes to foraging food, when it comes to mushrooms. He's building a great community out there, and I had the privilege for his birthday to meet a lot of the people that are really, kind of new age in this space and coming together as community here, where you are in Collingwood. So I'm just going to pass over to Brian so he can share a bit of his story, and we can dive in, have a little fun on today's show.
Beautiful. Thanks, Ashley. We can talk about so much today. My story, people are probably interested in the foraging aspect of things. I can certainly share that. I grew up in Burlington, Ontario, in the city. Definitely, there was, I always had a love of animals and nature that was just always with me, even though I was in the middle of the city. I grew up, had a couple vacant lots when I was really young around me. I used to love going in and finding bugs and stuff, and then just to see those getting torn down and houses built up, and it just kind of hurt me in that sense. And then I just became disconnected for so long. What the story I'm kind of going along with here is just the story of going through traumas and finding nature to be this amazing medicine for me, and nature leading me into where I am ultimately today, leading me to being curious about everything in life. I think I went vegetarian when I was 18, and that kind of opened me up to starting to think about my food habits, and then started watching some survival shows and getting really into that. And I was in the whole work grind out of school. I went through school with C's and D's. I just barely made it through school, and this whole school system we have is just me just barely passing through and leading me to think that I'm stupid. And it definitely affects your confidence when you don't know what you want to do. I just was told, get a government job or get a trade, just to get covered, nothing about, nothing to inspire me to follow my passions or anything.
Yeah, it's such a common thing, Brian. I think it's kind of even psychotic to expect a child whose brain is not even fully developed. Like, our brains don't even fully develop until like 21 to 25, depending on the person, depending their life experience. I'd even say sometimes it doesn't happen until 40. The science says like between 21 and 25. And it's like we're supposed to go into debt for something we're not even passionate about and be paying that off for the rest of our life. That makes no sense to me at all. The entire school system, I could talk about that for a long time. But I'm glad that you're bringing it up, because what you're sharing here is that you had your passion, you just lost it because of what you were being told to do that wasn't in alignment.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. As I was saying, as a kid, I recognized so many things, loving nature, and then I just had it taken away from me. And there was this, I feel like it's almost like kind of goes with like the hero's journey, returning back, getting lost and separated and moving away from nature to return to it, and then to have all these beautiful synchronicities come into my life as I start following what I believe in and what I find enjoyable to myself, and not listening to what others have to say. So I think that's really beautiful. I forgot where I was going to go with that, but
finding nature in this, and finding nature in the city is already a difficult thing, but what you were finding it, and then and you were getting curious about life, and there's something beautiful about nature in that it's so simple but complex at the same time. Like, you can get lost on so many rabbit holes when it comes to nature, but when you look at it, you can still look at it with a simple eye too. I think it's very beautiful like that. And what you're saying is that you're finding these empty lots, and you get curious about bugs and plants and all that, and then they build it up, and it was almost like the city sprawl, or like the mold on the sandwich. As it was spreading, you were becoming more disconnected until you were able to come full circle. And I would love to hear more about that, like how you found your way back, even being in the city. I mean, we know you've changed your environment now, but what was that process like for you?
Yeah, so ultimately I think as I said, I was going through school, struggling. I pretty much, as I said, it pretty much led me to believe I was stupid, at which point, high school. Well, I mean, I think I long gave up on trying to work at anything in school. I just pretty much at some point, I just didn't care about school. I just wanted to have fun and enjoy myself. So that's kind of where I ended up going, as just like, whatever, what, I quite frankly, because I was in the city, I was raised in front of a TV. That's all I did. And I just played video games. There was an escape, and I just wanted to play video games because that's what I enjoyed and what I knew. So I just did that instead of school. But at one point, I mean, I always did like going out into nature still, like despite like the nature being taken away from me there. I do have to say I'm grateful for like getting to at least once a year going camping. The one thing I look forward to every year, getting to go car camping for like a week to 10 days with my dad. And that was just like the one thing I look forward to every single year. We used to go hiking from time to time. So I'm very grateful to have this. These little nature experiences were enough for me to know how valuable it was in my life. And that really changed, I think, in grade 11, there was a lot of changes. That was a big shift in my life. I found a new friend crew I was hanging out with, and they were into skateboarding, so I got into skateboarding, and then that's when I started to just lose weight, because yes, of course, sitting in front of a TV being a kid, I was one of those fat kids, and
Could never imagine you overweight. Like, I look at you now, it's like there's so much. This guy, he can like hang off of a rock, and it's incredible. First time I met him, he was trying to climb a wall with an S-hook, and he almost accomplished it. Do you remember
that's hilarious. I remember now. Yeah, I tried climbing some super hard route, and I bailed off the first anchor, and I just had like one of those little like S metal things. I'm like, I'm not leaving a drop here. I'm just gonna. Hopefully this metal does not snap, but yes.
I could not imagine you overweight. This is the first I heard of this, and I have to see some pictures.
That's funny. I know, honestly, I do want to find some pictures. I'm going to have to, over the holidays, when I go down to the city, I'm going to have to go through the many pictures in the boxes in my grandma's basement and look for some, because, yeah, I tell people this, and it kind of blows people's minds like it is right now. But, yeah, I mean, of course, if you're just sitting in front of a TV, and I grew up on the standard American diet, too, so it's just that toxicity, and then to move away from it. So as I was saying, I got into the skateboarding, and then I don't know, like, I guess at some point I started getting out again, hiking with friends. You know, when you become that age, 16, your first couple friends start getting their licenses and getting to use their friends' cars, and we have that freedom, so we were able to get out and start hiking and stuff. And then so just little bits like that, I just found myself just wanting to get out of the city more and more. And as I went through school, I was saying I didn't know what I wanted to do. I ended up going back for an extra year. I did graduate with the minimal requirements, and then I didn't know what I wanted to do, so of course I followed what my dad had to say, and I went into the trades. So I took the Ontario Youth Apprenticeship Program after I had graduated, and I'm like, you know, whatever, construction is okay, this was kind of fun, but it was just certain aspects were, but then it's like, you know what, as soon as winter came around, it was like, holy shit, this is just like freaking cold and horrible. It's like the 9-hour days. It's just like such a toxic lifestyle. I started to see that, you know, like luckily, like what I was working on mostly, I worked for a couple people, renovators, and I know, like I said, I really didn't like it. It was just like, I mean, so I said there's certain aspects that made it manageable, but ultimately I didn't like it. And then I worked with my dad's friend who's a handyman, so some of those jobs were fun. I mostly like doing renovations and kind of like hands-on work like that, but ultimately it was like 9-10 hour days, come home, have a couple hours, eat dinner, whatever, go to sleep, wake up dreading the whole work cycle all over again. So I did that essentially for like 5 years, and I lived with my grandma. I remember specifically one time coming home and like being like, oh, this is bullshit. Like, why do people do this? I'm like, I'm not going to live my life working 40 plus hours a week to like have like, you know, 2 or 3 vacation weeks a year to retire when I'm all old and decrepit and useless. This is ridiculous. And you know, all my grandma really had to say to me was like, you gotta pay the bill somehow. And just like, I'm glad I just didn't listen to her advice at all. So I'm like, no, this is bullshit. I'm like, if I have to do this, I will kill myself. And I found a way.
I think some people are, you know, there's a lot of suicides that happen, you know, and right now, like, I don't know if you heard, but Trudeau has this push right now. And also Simon's, the fashion industry, I don't know if you know that, it's like a fashion store, Simon's, in a lot of the cities, and together with the government pushing assisted suicide on people. You leave the army, PTSD, here, have assisted suicide. You don't even have to wait 10 days. You don't even have to do a written request for it. It can be verbal. There's I think it was 30% of the suicides were assisted. The government's helping with this this thing that I think is crazy. Like, if somebody wants to kill themselves, it's a sign that there's something not right with the culture and the environment. And if you can change that, then the person can still live and fulfill their purpose or dharma on earth. You saw it as a chance. From what I'm hearing and what I know of you, is you saw this as a chance to change your environment and get your mind in a place where you could fulfill that dharma and rekindle that passion. This is a real big thing. People don't like that life, and that's why we're losing lives, valuable and valuable souls.
Yeah, absolutely. I do recognize that. It's just sad. I'm like, I look back on like so many of my struggles and I see that. I'm like, at so many of these points, I chose my own path to move forward, doing what makes me happy. Where, so many of these points, any person, I recognize, the depression, the anxiety, in this culture, and so many of these points I could have just killed myself, or turned to drugs or alcohol to soothe myself, where I chose nature. And that's just engaging in nature. Even like I was just telling my roommate yesterday, one of the realizations, something that I kind of have been taking for granted, is like my little garden behind me here in the windowsill. Even having a simple little thing like that in your life can bring happiness. Just having that nature, it's just the nature disconnect is huge, and people don't realize these things until they're actually in the experience.
Yeah, and this is a real thing. There's authors that write on this, and it's instead of like ADD, which we hear a lot about, there is actually a nature deficit disorder. And if we did start diagnosing people with NDD, there'd be a lot more solutions available other than pharmaceuticals, which is the reason why a lot of people don't know of the diagnosis NDD. But nature deficit disorder is, the reason for a lot of eye disorders and why people are wearing eyeglasses. And by the way, in 2022, so for this year, the highest monopoly industry was eyeglasses. But this goes beyond that. This also goes to mental health disorders. A lot of them, like ADD and ADHD, can be solved with nature therapies. A lot of suicidal ideation can be solved with nature therapies. Yeah, 100%. That connection that we get back.
That's it. Like, from my own realizations, it's like, if you could boil it down to one issue that our culture is suffering from, it is nature disconnect.
Yeah.
It all stems from a nature disconnect. So for me, getting back to nature, you just realize there's just an inner knowing you come to from being in nature. It just gives you these understandings of life just from being in nature. And it's just incredible. And that's kind of what I like to share with people. Like, my life is my message, as Gandhi said. So that's why I'm happy here to be sharing my message, as I've kind of been slowly getting through my story. I started, typical life, in the city with the standard diet, disconnect, and to move away from that and see how beautiful life really can be. It's just amazing. So I really like to inspire people to just get out there in nature. It doesn't even need to be like getting out for a hike in the forest, but if you are stuck in the city like I was, just to find a local park and sit and interact with a tree or something. It can be that simple.
Climb it, hug it. Yeah.
Hug it, exactly.
So, one of the things you're known for, and your name on Instagram, what I call you, even how I introduce you to my son, everything, Barefoot Brian. And one of the stories of how we were even introduced was your barefoot hiking, where you just foraged off the land. I think you were featured in a magazine for that when you did the Bruce Trail. I don't know if that's skipping ahead too far in your journey, but I'd really love to hear the lead up to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I wanted to hike the Bruce Trail. Well, first of all, as I was saying, I did move into construction at high school, so people are probably wondering how I got to from there. So,
Yeah.
as I said, I was doing construction. I did, residential, commercial. Commercial was particularly horrible, but like even the residential stuff, it was like, it was horrible. I'm like, I'm just working for rich people who want a new look in their kitchen, so we rip it all out and just throw all this crap in a dumpster, all this perfectly fine material right into a dumpster. Or the commercial
Wasted.
stuff where I was doing some framing, and you put up, like, say if you were putting up a wall and you need some temporary bracing, you pop a 2x4 in there to hold the wall up, and then once the wall is secure, you pop that 2x4 out that has a couple nails in it, gets thrown into a pile that then gets thrown into a dumpster. Like, it's insanity, and I couldn't be part of that. So I'm like, I'm not doing this. It's just destroying my soul doing this work. And then I do have some friends to thank that kind of inspired me to start looking at like college programs. Basically from there, I found the Outdoor Adventure Naturalist program at Algonquin College, and that was just like absolutely amazing, just what I needed. So it was like pretty much all introductory level to a wide range of things. So as I said, I had gone car camping, but I hadn't done much in terms of, I did grade 11 outdoor ed actually. So that's the first time I did canoeing and a couple activities, which that actually very much, I think that's actually got me back connected to nature, is getting to take that program. But anyway, besides that program, I hadn't really canoed, kayaked, did like skiing and whitewater rafting. We did like top rope climbing. So a bunch of like softer activities, and then there was the naturalist side of things too. So we had like geology and birding and astronomy, plant ID. We had kind of skills, wild edibles. So yeah, just a whole list of stuff like that. So it was like, all this stuff is like new to me. I just took this program, I saw the list of everything that was in it, and I'm just like, I didn't even know there was an outdoor adventure industry. So I'm like, I guess I can take this program and be a canoe guide or something. I don't know. I can imagine, I just go and do stuff. So I can imagine someone paying to do this, pay someone to take them to do this stuff. I couldn't imagine it. But I'm like, well, all this stuff sounds sweet. I'm going to take this program for myself. I just wanted to take this and learn it for myself. So I think that's kind of, following your passions just opens so many doors. And then from there was so many synchronicities going on. So leading up
That's
to
how
the
you know
Bruce
you're in
Trail.
alignment, right? Like, you did it for you, but now you're able to help so many people. And we're trained and programmed almost by culture that it's selfish if you do it for you. Or like what your grandma said, well, you have to pay the bills. And you're like, well, I'm choosing me instead of the bills right now. But you did it, and then what happened? The universe provided. The synchronicity started to come. It's like what Terence McKenna said about courage. It's like when you throw yourself into the abyss and realize that it's just a feather bed. It's not the end of the world. Everyone's like, it's the apocalypse. It's like, it's there for you. And when you got in that alignment, synchronicities started popping up. I'm sorry for interrupting, but...
No, that's great. I love it. So, yeah, I ended up going into this program, and it was just like, I excelled at this. So, as I said, going from high school, like barely making it through with C's and D's, all of a sudden I'm in this program where I'm like loving it, everything about it, and all of a sudden I'm, getting 90, 95s, like, my the plant identification first semester, finished it with like 99%. Is like, of course, which makes sense if you know me, that of course that would be my thing. In fact, that's what kind of sparked everything. I'm still leading up to the Bruce Trail hike. This is kind of like a little bit of the information getting up there. So this is the start really of my foraging experience, is the first semester having this plant identification course. It wasn't necessarily the course that kind of jumped me into it, but we had just a guidebook. I think the Lone Pine Plants of Central Ontario or something like that. Anyways, I just was flipping through it, and I'm like, oh, dandelion, I know that one. And then I just looked under the notes, and it's saying the whole plant can be used for whatever, brewing beer and making wine with the flowers and eating the young greens, and it just completely blew my mind. At that moment, I just knew our whole society was a lie.
Yeah,
I had grown up. I had grown up going to my dad's house and literally pulling dandelions out of the lawn with him. And then I look back on it and I'm just like, oh, all that wasted food and medicine. It's just people are spraying their lawns with poison to get rid of this medicine.
And it's medicine that they need. One thing I learned from studying herbology too was that oftentimes the medicine that we need is growing in our yard, so I'll watch people in the city here, just go for a walk with my dog or with my son, and I see them pulling out the dandelions, and I'm looking and I'm like, okay, well, this person is bloated, has a big gut, or is really grouchy, and it's this is going to help with liver, this is going to help with gut health. I see people planting grass seeds and taking out clovers, and it's a woman, and I'm like, this woman probably needs that clover for hormone issues. There's the culture, especially in the city, is not very healthy or in alignment. When it comes to dandelions, I'm especially passionate about it because I like to think about it like a sign of the rebellion, because no matter how much people pull out the dandelions, they still always come back. And so in you saying this is how I knew that it was all a lie, it's
yes.
that I think of the dandelions as a sign of the rebellion, that we just keep coming back with more force, that nature is going to win and persevere, that there is no end here. It doesn't matter how many individuals you pull out, because look at all the seeds that then go freely. So
100%. That's where I feel like so many people have no logic. I'm very logical, and I'm like, why would you waste your time pulling these out? It's people, I don't know how long people have been in this indoctrination of trying to pull dandelions from their lawns, but it's been, who knows, decades at least. And you can see there's been no impact on the population whatsoever. So it's why are you even trying? I still tell my dad this too. It's he's still pulling dandelions and weeds from the lawn. He's and he says it's for resale value. I'm like, you've been living in this house for 25 years. It's seriously, you're wasting so much time. If it's for resale value, save that time and you can spend that time later pulling them when it's time to sell it. Or instead, with that saved time, you could be working and making more money just to freaking pay for sod, and then you have a full grass lawn. If that's what it came to, if that's what mattered. But anyways, that's besides the point now. But the dandelions gets me pretty worked up to see that. But yeah, anyway, the dandelions, that just blew my mind. So I started with dandelion, just seeing that they were edible, and then I flipped the page and there's common plantain, a plant that I knew from when I played soccer growing up, literally sitting in the grass when the coach would be talking. You'd be pulling the seed heads and stuff. I'm like, oh, I know that one. And then that's once again, medicinal, young greens are edible. And then it just kept being all these plants I was learning about. All were medicinal, or all were edible. All had their uses. And it just blew my mind, and that's basically the start of it. That following summer, I had gotten 2 more guidebooks. And then at that point, that's when I came up to where I am now. I'm in Heathcote, which is west of Collingwood in the Beaver Valley, working with Free Spirit Tours. I came here for a co-op the first year. I didn't know anyone in the area, so what I did was with my free time, I was going to the Bruce Trail 4 or 5 times a week. I'd just be hiking and doing plant identification and just like then learning what they're used for and making food or medicine with what I found. So I would just walk. There's much easier ways of doing it, but this is just me, how I figured it. I just walked and I was like, that plant over there, that one there, I've seen that before, it looks distinct enough. And I would just flip through my book and pretty much try and match the picture with what I'm looking at. And then I started recognizing the plant families, characteristics and everything, and it just gets much easier from there. But I was like very committed on this plant journey right from that moment of learning dandelions were edible. And then we could fast forward from there to the Bruce Trail. I had always wanted.
Oh, sorry, Brian. Let's take a break here and we'll do a commercial. We'll let our sponsors share what they're doing in the psychedelic plant industry, and then we'll come back and you can share the rest of the Spruce Trail story.
Sounds good.
All right. We'll talk to you in a minute.
All right.
Bye.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
At Legacy 420, we believe in being different.
Experience the difference of quality control.
Our labs provide tested formulations for all of our products.
Experience the difference in trust.
Our customers can trust that we are following up-to-date COVID precautions for their safety.
Experience the difference in accessibility.
We're open 7 days a week. Please visit our website, legacy420.com, or contact us for curbside pickup as well as nationwide mail order shipping.
Legacy 420 values overall wellness.
Come and experience the difference of Legacy 420.
Growing your own vegetables, flowers, or even medicinal plants can be a challenge without the right equipment and proper know-how. At BMA Hydroponics, not only are they your urban horticultural experts and suppliers, but their staff holds the customer's needs paramount to making a sale. Family-owned with decades of experience and knowledge, they offer free advice in person, by phone, or email. BMA Hydroponics wants to ensure you have the advice you need, which is why you'll find tips and tricks on different ways to grow, like wick, ebb and flow, drip, or aeroponic system, as well as other helpful links at bmahydroponics.com. If you can't find what you're looking for, just let them know, and they'll do everything they can to get what you're looking for. At BMA Hydroponics, each staff member also possesses a federal exemptee MMAR license, making their strong suit empathy, experience, and dedication to their customers. Because when you know how to grow, you'll have results that make you proud. BMA Hydroponics in Belleville, Ontario. Visit bmahydroponics.com.
Let's share PACE everywhere. That way it can help create peace. People everywhere advocating cannabis education.
CP operates medicinal cannabis signing clinic. If you want to grow your own medicinal cannabis and are located anywhere in Canada, then I'd like to suggest that you give them a call. They can be reached at 1-613-967-9888. That's 1-613-967-9888, and grow on with CP.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
PACE Radio is the People Advocating Cannabis Education Radio Network.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.
Welcome back, Barefoot Brian, all of our listeners. I'm just going to pass right over to Brian so we can dive back into his story, because I know it's good.
It's a good one. I hope people are taking a lot out of this. So, yeah, it's a long one, but it's my story, and I know it has a lot of wisdom in it. But where were we? I think I was just getting to the Bruce Trail stuff. Right, so I finished my college program, finished that with honors. Pretty much just proved to myself that I'm quite smart and capable, where our modern system didn't work for me. But so the Bruce Trail. So as I mentioned, I did grow up in Burlington, where I did go hiking. I did hike like in several spots through Hamilton, Dundas, Burlington area, all through the Bruce Trail there. And then I had where I am now. I'm 3 kilometers from Bruce Trail where I am, and if you know the Bruce Trail, the Beaver Valley section where I am, it just dips right down the one side of the valley and up the other. So there is so much sections around me here too. So I just, at one point, I'd hiked so much of it, and I always thought for a long time, I always thought it would be cool to hike the whole thing. When that idea first popped into my mind, probably back in high school, I really didn't know how much there would be to doing the trail. Like, I honestly just, the thought was like, it would be cool to hike it. I had no clue really how long it was or anything. I just had that thought. And then I realized, it's pretty long, but not that long. And it's going through South Ontario. There's a lot of road sections. It's not like your wilderness. It's pretty easy to actually do logistically. Also, where I did grow up in Burlington too, where my grandma still lives, is 3K off the trail. So it was easy enough for restocking. So I did go start from the south end in Niagara Falls. It wasn't that long from there actually to get up to Burlington. So it's like, I think it was like 4 or 5 days. But it was actually, I started May 1st, and it was like a heat wave. So that was interesting. So it was like 30 degrees, and being 30 degrees and being that early spring, there was no leaves on the trees. So it was just like full sun exposure, just dripping with sweat, just constantly having to like suck back water and just jumping in little creeks and stuff as I was passing by. But yeah, it was great. Yeah, I think I did a lot of that. As you're saying, I did a lot of that barefoot, and I feel like if I was to do it again, I would probably just do it mostly barefoot. I did most of it in sandals. There was like sections where I did barefoot, but this was kind of where I wasn't as like hardcore or challenging myself as much to be barefoot. I did have a pair of boots that mostly just sat in my bag, which kind of was a waste of space and weight. But yes, a lot of weight. Yeah, so I was kind of, I definitely would not bring boots again if I was to do it again. But yeah, so I did that in 34 days. It was quite an adventure. I don't know how much detail you want me to go into this, but it was like, that's like a whole story in itself. But I'll share with some exciting parts, like when I got up to the Bruce Trail, or the Bruce Peninsula park. I'd like camped in a field behind the sign, and that was like there was a really solid oak tree there. I did get a bear hang for my food, and thank God I did, because that night I woke up and I definitely heard a bear sniffing around under my food bag, and I was like 30 feet away. But also I had a really crappy headlamp that decided to not work, so I couldn't even get up and see what's going on. So I just kind of like lied there listening for a bit, and then just went back to bed. And then sure enough, the next morning I walked up the road 10 minutes. There was like an old couple birding in a field, and they're like, they just asked, they were just like, we just saw a bear run through here like 10 minutes ago. So I'm like, oh, well, that kind of confirms that it was the bear that visited me. So that was fun. Yeah. And then I actually had really good weather the whole time, up until the last
Another
day.
Synchronicity.
Yeah, so it would have been a 33-day trip, but the last day I ran into some people. They showed me the radar, and it was like kind of this epic event where it was like, they showed me the radar, there's like a huge storm coming in. So I basically and I didn't have any plans when I got to the end what I was going to do. So I was like, well, I don't want to get to the end and like be in this storm and not have somewhere to stay. Because at that point, I was a real dirtbag and didn't pay for anything. In fact, why Asha wanted me to share this story is because I did it entirely on dumpster dove and foraged food.
Yeah.
So there was an article in Mountain Life magazine on this. So yeah, I just hunkered down for like basically a day and a half on this side trail of the Bruce Trail, and it just poured and did not stop for a day. So I was like glad to have set up a solid shelter. And then yeah, the next day I hiked out and kind of checked out Tobermory a little bit. Went to this like fish and chips place. I got a piece of cardboard and a Sharpie, and I made myself a hitching sign, and I got a ride down to Lion's Head where I had some friends climbing for a few days. So I basically just met up with them, and that was it. So it was pretty epic.
And that's rock. Yeah, and that's rock climbing, which is a really big passion of yours, and one of the reasons why you went to Collingwood. I mean, there was many reasons. You were already familiar with the area, but that was a big part of it. I'd love if you dive more into that too. Were you already into rock climbing by the time you completed the Bruce Trail, or was that just starting for you?
That was like pretty much the beginning, actually. So I think that was like my second year I would have been climbing then. Because yeah, I actually had my one buddy that was at Lion's Head. It was a buddy and one of his friends, and I gave him, I think we kind of somewhat were trying to plan it where I would meet at Lion's Head, so it did work that way. So in fact, I did give him my climbing shoes and harness, so he had that for me when I went. And yeah, talk about an epic finishing too. That was my first time hitchhiking, and the guy that picked me up was super nice, went out of their way to drop me off in Lion's Head, and then I hiked in, found them, and then they had canoed in, so I did like a day of climbing with them, and then we paddled out, and that was kind of the end of that journey. So that was sweet. But yeah, no, I ended up in Collingwood area, as I said, through a co-op with Free Spirit Tours, and then I got into climbing my second year I was up here. So did my co-op, went back to school, graduated that. I had spent that winter in Burlington, and then I came up that spring. And then my roommate had just gotten into climbing himself. So it's like, there's a lot of synchronicities with the climbing going on, which was really cool. Yeah, so, yeah, it's kind of neat how everything fell into place in that sense that he had started climbing, he got me into it. That winter when I went to Burlington, I started rock climbing at a gym there, and then it happened that a gym opened in Collingwood that year. I started climbing as well, so it opened that August. So I climbed that season, and then I started working at the gym in Collingwood. So it was like kind of neat with all these synchronicities. But yeah, that was absolutely my favorite pastime, is just getting out and being on the rock and being in nature. It's just such a great way to move your body. You get to move like every muscle in your body. I find like the movement on the rock is amazing. The mental challenge of it, and also a lot of the crags you hike to, like 20 minutes or something, you know? So it's like usually I'm hiking in and out with a bag, and when I'm coming out after climbing, I usually have a bag full of mushrooms or greens, or there's always something I'm coming out with in terms of food for dinner.
Yeah, you do that for me when I come to, or whether I'm by myself or with Finn or with friends. It's always the same. It's like Brian's coming with mushrooms and making these crazy bowls of like, it's like a Buddha bowl essentially, but they're all with foraged foods, and that's a big part of what you're doing with Free Spirit Tours right now too, is that you actually started a garden of all stuff that's local. So making it even show that like, look, you don't have to go out and buy a bunch of seeds, like, which I still do. I still do, but I like, that's my own obsession. But you don't have to, because everything's already there, and that's what you're showing is like, you can just take from this cutting and move it here, and now you have a garden, and it's free, and it's abundant in nutrition, and it's all made for that area, which means it's made for us if we're living in that area. So it's beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. And like something I'm kind of coming more into learning is that, gardening actually is a lot of work. And it's kind of crazy. Like growing these annuals, like I'm not gonna grow. I grow a couple annuals, like tomatoes are great, zucchini. I just grow a couple things that that I wouldn't normally otherwise be able to like forage or get myself. Anyways, yeah, the difference between foraging and permaculture, or these like perennial gardens, it's huge. Like perennials they grow themselves. Why would you need to plant things? Planting seeds and then having to transplant the seedlings, having to like harden them off, and then build up your garden with like compost. And it is a lot of work, as opposed to like, as I was saying, like a perennial garden, the plants just grow themselves. You can do like a little bit of weeding in there. Otherwise, they just grow themselves.
Even some of the weeds that I was pulling, because I thought like that the black tomato one, it's like a type of perennial nightshade, and I was
wild one.
Yeah, I was pulling it out of my garden thinking that the kids might try to eat the berries and that they get sick from it. And it wasn't until I went to your place this fall and you were like, oh, here, eat these. I'm like, I've literally been pulling these out of the garden. And yeah, I didn't think we could. I know nightshades are like one of those in-between families. It can be toxic to some. And so I was just getting rid of it. But they actually tasted great. And I can see why you have them in your garden.
Yeah, so as I said, nature provides. We don't even need to be planting things. In fact, so many people, when I do foraging tours here, they're just like, I have that in my garden. It's just like a constant thing. And then people are so inspired to go, and then they just start finding what's in their garden. But yeah, I did start with gardening. When I first moved here, I did have like my garden. That was before I knew much about foraging. But then I started doing the plant identification of everything that was popping up in my garden. And I came to realize, I'm like, 90% of what's coming up is edible and medicinal. So
we don't need the grocery stores. So we can feed ourselves. Yeah. We don't need Monsanto.
Well, that's it, right? We're just so disillusioned and so disempowered in every way.
Yeah,
it's like nature really does provide everything we need. Like it really was a Garden of Eden, and at some point, I don't know where that changed, but
I think it still is, and I call myself a community garden because I feel like what part of my job is. I used to say whenever you're in business courses or trainings, they're always like, choose your one word, choose your niche, choose your why, make it one word. So mine came to Eden, and it's not that I'm religious or anything, it was the garden. And then I realized as I was creating this network of people who were passionate about foraging and psychedelics and all this, that what it is a garden, but it's a global garden, and it's all about just connecting with these people no matter where they are in the world that are already doing it. So I can consider myself more of a community garden just on a global scale than anything else, because it's what we're passionate about, and we are bringing that back, that understanding, that knowing, that like coming back to the garden. It's it's like coming back home.
Absolutely. Yeah, it really is. And part of that is that community aspect. We become disempowered in the sense that we have lost community. I mean, look at people living in the city in an apartment. They're crammed into these little cells, and they don't even know the person in the next cell to them,
And they're told not to, that it might be scary. It might be a Jeffrey Dahmer next door or whatever,
Yeah.
Where did that go? Like where we were community with our neighbors, and when it was collaboration over competition. You go a lot further and faster when there's more of you. but we are isolated, and then people feel alone. And I think part of it is because with our food there's missing components. Like with our medicine, it's only parts of the plant, it's not the whole plant. That's what pharmaceuticals is. A lot of it's still derived from plants, but they're missing all these pieces. And when you're consuming food and medicine that's not whole, then guess what? We feel like, oh, well, there's a piece of the picture missing, there's a piece of us missing. Yes, there is, very much so. And when we can, move beyond the me and back into the we, that community comes back and that wholeness comes back. And then we're able to share that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, as I said, I'm pretty logical. So I was largely kind of going to a bit of a spirituality side of things. Like my dad, we did go to church a couple times when we were younger and never understood it. And then at some point I was atheist and mad at the world, and nature brought me to spirituality to see these things. I think if you look at like religions, like most of them, if not all, like they teach service to others, and that's where you find true happiness. So it's like our whole culture is so self-centered, where we're trying to buy things to create happiness for ourselves, and people are still like, why am I unhappy? And when you find that community and you can provide to your community and they can provide to you, you can just see how beautiful life really is.
When you were saying that, my mind went to Christmas and debt. And one of the reasons for unhappiness would be that debt. And when we think about school, right, before our brains are even fully developed, we're told, go into debt for something you're not even passionate about so that you can pay your bills. And then that debt, it becomes normalized that we're in debt. But every single time we're in debt, we're further from where we actually need to be, which is in balance, which is even, which is, tapped into what's already there. Because if we're in debt, then guess what? We're in lack. But we don't need to be in lack, because we literally have everything. Nature is providing us everything, and everything else is essentially a lie. And it's crazy to get your mind around that. And sometimes it can feel very lonely too, because if you're in somewhere like the city or around family that has different views, which I still get when I'm with my family too, and I'm sure you do as well, there is that disconnect and it can feel lonely. But it's also, I think, about finding those other people. Like, you're not alone. There's always more people. It's just stepping outside of your comfort zone to find those that are in alignment and that do get it, that do see the truth through the lies.
Yes, absolutely. If you kind of are thinking, how do I find my community, or I can't relate to anyone, or it's like, you don't have to relate to your family. I'm obviously, like so many people in my community, we're the black sheep of the family.
Yes.
But this is where like where we are in this today's age with technology. That's where technology is such a plus. We have access, like us talking right now over the internet. I mean, all people are connected, right? How many people on this planet? 8 billion people, right? It's like, you're not alone. You're gonna find your community.
Yeah. And they're waiting for you. They're looking for you too. But you have to get past those mindsets of, oh, I'm alone. Like, if you're saying I'm alone, and you're feeling like I'm alone, then you're gonna be alone. But if you get in the habit of, I'm gonna go find those people who need my help, or I'm gonna go find those people that are like me, then you're gonna get there. It's like, when I go on Instagram, I'm not aligned with social media at all, but I use it as a tool. I get in a mindset that I'm Xavier off of X-Men, and I'm putting on the cerebral helmet, and I'm going into the Matrix to find the other mutants that need my help. Like, I'm on a mission when I open that app, or re-download that app, because I delete it often too, just so it doesn't take my time or control me. And when I get it back or I turn it on, that intention's there. Like, I'm on a mission. I'm visualizing, like going through the clouds, like finding that person. And then I'm either going to help them or we're going to collaborate. And it makes a difference. But it can also be lonely, especially if you're in the mindset of, I'm alone. It takes a little bit of work to move past that.
It does.
Sometimes it means actually making yourself be alone and doing something like you did, of walking the Bruce Trail alone. And finding that connection within yourself, with nature. I did a very similar thing in South America. I needed to walk alone in order to learn how to trust myself again and to find my way. That without the other influences. You know, sometimes it's part of it is being alone, but you know, it still starts with that mindset, that changing the mindset from I am and this is just the way it is to I'm going to do something different and for myself. And it's not selfish because eventually it's going to ripple out and make things better.
Absolutely. And I think that like aloneness that you're talking about, I almost think it's a necessity to be able to be alone with yourself, with your thoughts, to actually know what thoughts are your own. Because if you always have this outside stimulation, other people telling you how things should be, then it's like
TV, commercials.
Yeah, there's so much out there that's manipulating your thoughts. So if you can get away from that, I like to say, you know what? Travel is huge. Travel is a huge aspect of me coming to who I am, is being able to, I was always pretty individualistic. Society didn't really have too much of an influence on me, thankfully, but I know other people certainly have that more than others. But you know what? To go travel, to go to another country, to actually immerse yourself in that culture, to see, because we're a very toxic culture. You know what? If you can go immerse yourself in another culture and see that not everywhere in the world is like us, you're gonna get a real experience in how life is supposed to be. So that's what I did. I traveled a lot. I haven't traveled a lot of places, but I go places for a long time. So I thought, the first place I ever traveled, I never traveled really growing up with my family, but I don't know where the idea came from. I've always wanted to go to Costa Rica, but I had never traveled before, and I was like, ideally I want to go somewhere that's English speaking, so it's like not as much of a barrier. Anyway, so I decided on New Zealand. So my first time traveling ever, I literally, first of all, actually heard about woofing, which was cool. So I heard from a friend that takes woofers. I was like, that's the coolest idea ever.
Can you share for anybody what that is? Like, I know what it is. You know what it is, but for anybody who's never heard that term.
So woofing is WWOOF, Willing Workers on Organic Farms. It's an organization. You can look it up online, and you basically will register, sign up for it. You pay a fee. I think it's per country. But you pay your fee, you have a profile you set up, and then you basically search on there for farms that are taking woofers. You can click on them and you can read their profile. If it seems like a cool place, you can message them, basically figure out, when and how long you're going to stay with them. And it's basically you're working 4 to 6 hours a day in exchange for food and accommodation. So perfect way to immerse yourself into the culture.
And so you've even got in cars, and you've had a bunch of different experiences. I'm sure you'll share. But some of them were a little less fortunate, more dirtbaggy-ish, and others were, set up with a car and more luxury.
Yeah. So most places I went had bikes, which is great, because you have a lot of free time, and if you're out in the country or something, then some places, you can definitely get pretty bored if you're in the middle of nowhere and you have so much free time. But boredom is great too. You have to appreciate even boredom, because creativity is born out of boredom.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, things that people don't realize in this crazy world where it's we're never bored because there's so much stimulation. it's good to be bored. I can look back on these moments where I was so bored, and I can see the beauty of it now. At the moment when I was in it, it was not pleasant, but I can look back and see how beneficial it was. So woofing, traveling, woofing, immersing yourself in culture. I forget where I was even going with this now, to be honest.
but yeah, you can share some of your...
Right.
Yeah, go on.
I was getting at that as I was kind of transitioning kind of into my psychedelic journey, because I know that's what you're all about here. So this is when I had I didn't really smoke cannabis at all. Like my dad was really against it, and I kind of got those values instilled into me. So I had friends, that would smoke a lot, and, I'd hang with them, but I wouldn't smoke. And then at some point, the same thing with drinking too. It took a while before I finally drank, and then
now you make your own alcohol.
Yeah. So, yeah, anyways, I didn't really smoke much until I went to New Zealand. And then it was like so many of the people I stayed with would just like have their own homegrown, and you just see so much beauty of like people just helping you out, like I'd go from one place to the other, they'd give you a bunch of garden produce or whatever whatever they have, whatever growing, and then usually that also includes cannabis. So I was like, the one place I had stayed, he gave me like a big jar of cannabis, and I'm like, okay, I don't even smoke much. I'm like, I don't know, I guess I gotta get some papers. So I'm like, I guess I'm learning how to roll a joint now. And then I just remember how funny it was, because I would roll these tiny little crappy joints, and I would take like 2 puffs, and I would be so stoned. But yeah, I think that was interesting, because like having all that free time, and then having this cannabis, like there wasn't the distractions necessarily. So it's like being able to just like have the cannabis and be present with it. I could really like sit with my thoughts and have like all kinds of realizations. So that was pretty cool. And then this, at the same time as being there, this is the first time I've experienced mushrooms. Pretty awesome way to experience mushrooms for the first time. So the first mushrooms I ever really tried, psychedelic ones, was the Amanita muscaria, which is not the traditional psilocybin mushroom.
No.
So they were absolutely everywhere when I was on the South Island of New Zealand. Like literally, like lawns were just covered in them. They were beautiful. And then I happened to run into this guy, ended up woofing with him, a friend. But yeah, he was telling me that they are edible, because like so many books, if you look into like wild edible books and stuff, they say that Amanita muscaria is poison.
You'll die, death cap. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was telling me no, and then he showed me like there was this article, or what is it called again? There's like a whole like 100-page plus PDF just specifically on the Amanita muscaria, talking about processing it and stuff. You could probably just Google it and find it. Anyway, so I really read that, and I was like fascinated. So I like started experimenting with it. I ate a bunch raw. It get a little bit of like uncomfort in my stomach. So like, yeah, eating it raw is definitely not the way to go. So I was reading, you dehydrate it, and then a lot of the ibutenic acid, which is the toxic part of it, gets converted to muscimol, which is the psychedelic part of it. I'm gonna try and work with it again. I didn't honestly have much with it there. It would give me like, yeah, a little bit of like a weird feeling in my stomach, and then I just get like uncontrollable yawns, like super tired. And then after that passed, then I would kind of get like a bit of a psychedelic feel. Like the most common thing that I was reading about, which I also experienced, was like just seeing things in different colors and different tones. So I'd be looking at something like green, and it would be maybe more blue. something like that. And then at one point I was looking up at the mountains and they like started coming at me in waves. But that was it for it. So it wasn't like nothing like very awesome. But shortly after that, literally when I started experimenting with these, I was at this farm that the guy there actually then told me he has liberty caps that grow in the paddock there. So he said they grew in the thousands in the fall, and it was early fall, so we went out and walked around and looked for some, and then he pointed some out. So after like he pointed some out, and then I went and looked around and found some for myself, and then he confirmed them. I was like walking around trying to find the liberty caps. I got about 100 of them. They're real tiny little things. So it took about 50 to actually get a trip. But this was the first time I ever had the mushrooms.
Was it raw or was that dehydrated?
I had some raw the first time I had them raw. I don't think I ate enough the first time to even get any effects. I don't know, because even with the cubensis, the first couple times I had it, I didn't really get any effects. But the second time I had these liberty caps, I had dried a bunch and I brought them with me. I went to another farm and met up with a friend I had met at the very first farm. This is 6 months later after getting into the country. So we met like Northland, north of the North Island, and now we're on the north of the South Island 6 months later, met up at a farm and we're woofing together, so it's super cool. There was another guy staying there too, which was awesome. So there's like the three of us, we're all like pretty like-minded, chill. And the woman who we were woofing for just gave us a giant list of things to do, and she was literally like taking off like days after we got there to go on a trip. So she just gave us a list. She wasn't even there. So I had the rest of those mushrooms, and I also smoked some cannabis at the same time. So this is where I wasn't like viewing mushrooms as medicine, but more as like let's just do this to ultra conscious. And so that was really powerful. I didn't really get anything like spiritual out of it because we were just kind of hanging out, but like it was definitely an experience. We were talking about Nintendo 64 actually. And then at some point, like I saw everything in like 64-bit graphics. It was like honestly the coolest like visual experience I've ever had. I haven't had any visual experience like that since, but that really sticks out. But I thought I would start it.
Yeah, I'm just gonna cut to break. Thank you for everything you shared so far. I'm going to cut to break again. We'll just share our sponsors here, and then we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit more about psychedelics and your journey to date, how it's evolved from where it started to where you're at now.
Sounds good.
Okay, I'll talk to you in a minute.
All right.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
At Legacy 420, we believe in being different.
Experience the difference of quality control.
Our labs provide tested formulations for all of our products.
Experience the difference in trust.
Our customers can trust that we are following up-to-date COVID precautions for their safety.
Experience the difference in accessibility.
We're open 7 days a week. Please visit our website, legacy420.com, or contact us for curbside pickup as well as nationwide mail order shipping.
Legacy 420 values overall wellness.
Come and experience the difference of Legacy 420.
In February of 2022, the Victoria Cannabis Buyers Club and Ted Smith were fined $6.5 million. This for helping 8,500 patients with access to medical cannabis. In our interview with Ted, he spoke to us about how people can donate to help in an upcoming court challenge. And here is part of that interview. From what I've seen lately, I believe that you've got something that you're trying to do as far as fundraising to deal with this next court challenge.
For now, people can write checks directly to Jack Lloyd Law Corporation or send e-transfers to savethebcbc at gmail.com. I guess those are the two easiest ways for people to help right now.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Growing your own cannabis is easier than you think. Whether you're growing for recreational or medical purposes, BMA Hydroponics has everything you need to succeed. From the standard 4-plant recreational systems to the latest cutting-edge hydroponic equipment, BMA can customize your package and do it at discount prices. Visit BMA Hydroponics at 404 Maitland Drive in Belleville and ask us for a free estimate. Or call 613-967-9888 and we will give you an estimate over the phone. The only way to go.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Welcome back, Brian, Barefoot Brian. I love it because it's so easy to remember. And normally you're in bare feet. Like, I love when I go out to Metcalf or anything now. Like, that's literally your identifier. It's like Barefoot Brian. Like, people know you.
I know it's funny, but you know what? It's like at the same time, I'm like, okay, Barefoot Brian, sure, that's kind of my identity now. But at the same time, it's like it's kind of sad in a way. That's just like one more way we become so disconnected from the earth. Like what I do seems like such a extreme thing, and I'm like, I'm just being me. I'm just being connected to nature and doing what feels good.
Yeah.
You know? But anyways.
I got the same thing too. Like, it was different in South America. If I wore my flip-flops or anything, just because of the communities that I was in, they'd be like, why aren't you in bare feet? And so I was encouraged, like, take off the flip-flops. And, you know, and flip-flops aren't a lot. And I oftentimes was like climbing in ruins and things barefoot, but you know, in the city parts, people just pee on the streets and stuff. So I thought for cleanliness, wear them. But I still, like, you know, the community was telling me just take them off, whatever. They get washed. Like, your feet get washed, the streets get washed, everything gets washed. It's okay. Just be a part of the stone, be a part of the earth. And then I go to Denver, Colorado, and I did Cambo there. And then I went and I hiked Three Sisters and stuff again, barefoot. And I was still like in the mindset that this is normal, or I still had like that community encouraging me to just be barefoot, be like a child again, you know? And then everybody's like, oh wow, your feet must be hurting, and oh my god, how do you do that? And I'm sure like you get it all the time too, but I was just like, what was coming through for me is that this is a sense. It is a sense, like there is a connection there. There's a lot of stuff happening, and it allows you, or allows me anyway, like more freedom and more control and I feel more safe. I feel grounded, especially in high situations. But whereas with shoes, I feel unsafe. I feel like I'm not in control. Like I could slip at any time. Like I can't feel it. I feel like in barefoot, it's like a safety, a sense. Like maybe not the sixth sense, but a sense.
Well, I like to tell people, you know, like let's say if you're crossing a stream or something, or, you know, just, you know, like you're walking on like something slippery, a slippery surface, or suspected slippery surface, usually crossing a stream. It's like, you know what, if you go to walk across that in shoes or something, it's like you're not going to know you're on your ass until you're really, literally on your ass, right? Yeah. Or if you're going to fall. It's like, you know, if you step down on something barefoot, it's like immediately you know how much friction there's going to be. Unlike shoes, where, like I said, you're just going to end up on your ass. No warning whatsoever. Even stuff like that, you know. So in a way, it's much safer being barefoot. Yeah,
I agree wholeheartedly. I'd like to get the courage to do it more in winter. Like even in fall when we did your birthday, I brought my shoes because I'm like, you know, am I going to need this to warm up? Which I did after we were done. Like I did the caves in barefoot, which was really helpful because if I would have done it in shoes, I think I would have gotten stuck in some of the areas because the shoe makes your foot bigger, you know. But coming out, it was nice comfort to have like the warm socks and the shoes back on. But you know, yeah, I feel like those comforts are causing a lot of issues and a lot of disconnect as well. And you know, it's nice to just embrace that childhood nature of barefoot.
Yeah, well, I mean, like you said, that it's the comfort thing. You could say that in pretty much all aspects of life. Our comfort is causing us disease, you know, disease. Yeah, it's wild. And then, like you said, I mean, I'm not like this, you know, barefoot and shoes are the devil and stuff. It's like there's a reason people wear shoes. Yeah, of course, they keep you warm and
you do have some. They're just not always on.
No, I mean, like it's just a tool, right?
Yeah.
It's like our natural state should be without shoes, and if we need shoes, if we're going across, you know, hot surface or sharp rocky surface or something, we sometimes want shoes, but our first reaction shouldn't be to just stick our feet into shoes when we leave our house.
Yeah, and then in slippers all day in the house, and changing a different pair, and some people have lots of pairs. One for everything. The worst one I think is for women with heels, because I've seen and I know of people who have really, really bad feet and need surgeries and stuff from that. I'm glad I never did it. You know, even in my bar days, I remember distinctively one time I got a pair of wedges. I could never do heels, but I'm like, these wedges, they're hot lady wedges. So I'm gonna look good. And then I ended up barefoot running around the bar, and I gave them away to somebody who thought that they were hot and sexy. I'm like, you just have them. I'll be barefoot. We're good.
There you go. Win-win.
We should get back on subject there. I'm glad that we talked about this a little bit more, because I think it would, you know, might inspire somebody to just try it. I personally want to, you know, do it at least a couple times this winter to just feel the ground and feel in. But yeah, back to psychedelics. Please continue your story and what it's been like, how it's, you know, evolved since your first couple experiences in New Zealand.
Yeah, I'm definitely a very different person because of psychedelics. I mean, specifically psilocybin, mushrooms. That's my medicine. It's just been amazing. Like, from the story I've told you guys, going right now with traveling and everything, it sounds all fun and great, but also a large part of, well, I shouldn't say large part, but an aspect of like me traveling and escaping to nature was because I didn't have a good childhood, because there was a lot of disassociation. As I said, I was raised in front of a TV, and I just did a ceremony last Thursday, and part of that ceremony I had seen that I had used video games to disassociate from what was going on in my life through just family struggles, you know. I feel like they're probably not any different than what most people go through, but I think a lot of people just don't take the time to acknowledge that there were like struggles in their childhood, and they still are acting out these traumas. So I think it was like, as I said, I had those mushrooms in New Zealand first, and then I didn't really associate mushrooms with medicine for the first few times I took them, to be quite honest. I just was like taking them to just learn what they're all about, and to just to basically kind of get like a high, like as if you were smoking or drinking or something, you know, like most people would kind of do, you know, like party and have some mushrooms. But I don't think exactly how that kind of all unfolded for me. it's kind of interesting. So I went out to, I went out to Victoria for a winter. That's 4 years ago now. I went out there to Pacific Rim College and took their Intro to Western Herbalism program. And when I was out there, when I did go out there, that's when I did realize I had been using so much. That's when I literally did start using cannabis a lot more frequently, and it was an escape. It started to become an escape. So when I did get out to Victoria, I had realized that first of all, I went out to look for a place to stay for the winter. I found a place to stay, but I wasn't going to move in there for, I had a week before I was actually able to move in. So I was sleeping in my car a couple nights. And then I kind of forgot my grandpa lives like an hour north of there, and he didn't have a place for me to stay, but his friend was like away and I could stay at his house. But it was like he didn't have Wi-Fi. It was like pretty basic, and it was like essentially at this point I had no distractions, and then it hit me really hard, these emotions that I had been suppressing for so long, and I almost had like a bit of a breakdown there. And because I hadn't been able to talk about emotions whatsoever, like I can be completely open with my struggles, but I wasn't able to talk about emotions. This is where I was led to believe what's wrong with me, because I had kept everything in because of my past traumas. Like my teenage years were really awkward. I really literally couldn't talk. Like my family didn't talk about emotions whatsoever, and had to like suppress so much. So it's like you can't really have a relationship, friendship, or anything, if you can't talk about anything whatsoever emotional. All my relations were very, very surface level, and I just kind of, for the most part, like with my friends, it was like playing video games or skateboarding, doing actual activities, not talking about things. So I just had nothing to talk about. I had nothing to say, and then I finally had this bit of a breakdown, and I finally was able to like call my mom, tell her I was having these struggles, and then I finally, it was like before that, it was months before this, where I was like, I knew something was wrong, and I was starting to feel the beginning stages of depression, where I'd wake up in the morning and have this really awful feeling inside, and then I would get up and go on with my day and distract myself. But here I didn't have those distractions, and it hit me real hard, and because I wanted to talk, but I literally couldn't. I couldn't do it. I'd like think about everything I wanted to say, and then I couldn't literally initiate the conversation. So I finally talked, and it was just this huge weight lifted off my chest. And then, this was like 4 or 5 years ago. So literally just like exploring my emotions now. But psychedelics have been a huge part of it, because I had taken mushrooms, I took mushrooms before going there in the summer, just as, party, let's have them. And then once again, I wanted to try them again when I was in Victoria, and it did bring me to a bad place, what people would consider a bad trip. It just like brought like a lot of emotions up and brought me to tears. And so anyways, I just kept finally starting to be able to open up and really actually talk about what's going on in my life and stuff. And then I can't remember now, because it's been, honestly, taking mushrooms medicinally, being on this journey has been only, just over 2 years, I think. So I think I don't remember how it all started, really. It's interesting. I think I started growing them. I don't remember if I was experimenting with them before that, but I just started to grow them like the PF Tech method in the mason jars. And I had taken 5 grams because I knew that was like the big dose. I wanted to take them, a large dose to experience them and to heal. This is when I started reading and learning about the medicinal healing properties of them. And I had taken 5 grams, I got 5 grams from a buddy. I don't know where he got them, but they did nothing for me. And I'm like, what the heck? That's what it was. So it was like that. And I tried a few times with mushrooms that I got from other people. and I got like nothing out of them. I'm like, what the hell? So I'm like, I was like not trusting the source, so that's what made me want to grow them. And then I grew them, and then once again I had them myself, the 5 grams, and it was like nothing. I'm like, what's going on? Like, and then finally, I think it was like my 4th time of trying 5 grams. It was like I was lying down in my bed and like trying to like go into like, you know, inwards, meditative and stuff. I was like just breathing and meditating. I was lying there for like an hour and a half, and like, and I just kind of got frustrated because I'm like, what the hell? Nothing's happening again. And then like I went for a walk down the road. I'm in the country. There's this beautiful park going along the river, and this is like February or something. We just got a huge dumping of snow, and I get up, and like minutes later when I'm in the park, it starts hitting me, and it was just like this amazing experience where, as I said, I had repressed so much emotions, where I think that it was like my body like removing these blockages, but I was like, at one point I was cycling through these emotions, you know, like it was like every 10 seconds it felt like, for who knows how long, I'd be like super angry, and then super sad, and then super laughing and happy, and it was just like these cycles. It was so crazy. And then like it was, well, through it all, it was like pure bliss. And every time I've gone into ceremony, it's always this huge emotional release, but pure bliss, the feeling under it all. So yeah, it was like thigh deep powder, a huge dumping of snow. So it's so awesome. I was out there in this like powder, just like, I just had so much energy. I was just like running like full sprint through this powder and just jumping into it. And yeah, so I think I just had this huge like emotional release from that experience. And then I got into cross-country skiing. We have this beautiful place here, Collingwood. There's like 65 kilometers of trail in there, but I started taking my mushrooms. I would take like a half a gram or a gram and go cross-country skiing. And I would literally, because it was so nice, because it was just in nature, and I'd be just fully present with myself and the mushrooms. You know, you have different thoughts come up when you have that medicine in you. And I would have my phone on me, so when I have these realizations, I can like take notes. So that was like largely the start of my mushroom experiences, is just cross-country skiing and taking lower doses.
You make a good point here too, like what is a lower dose for you, for other people would still be a high dose, right? But you, like, this is a really important thing to bring up, is the tolerances. Like, you know, have a large tolerance, and but you also found where that microdose is for you and what's working for you. And I think that that's so important here, is that we're all so individual. It's something you did nutrition school too after me, and it was like such a big thing that was brought up, is this bio individuality, and you know, trusting yourself to know what's the best for you. It's not a one size fits all. Like, even when I make those like psilocybin manuals or guides and post them out there, it's, you know, to be honest, mainly to get people to look at me. It's not because I fully believe that that's the guide, because it's just a generalization. You know, it's to inspire people to liberate themselves and to know that, yeah, there are these categories, and to want to seek more knowledge. But the truth is that each of us are going to have a microdose limit that's different, and a heroic dose limit that's going to be different. You know, everything else is just general. I think that's a beautiful thing, that both works with nutrition and diet, but also with the psychedelic realm. You know, which, you know, psychedelics, I think, are a type of nutrition. It's just that, again, with culture, we've been programmed to think that it's different and even dangerous. Yeah. You know, I still think it's so funny that, like, the Fantastic Fungi movie on Netflix is under the occult section. It's not under health or nutrition or diet. Really? It's under occult. Like, crazy. Sorry, Brian. I'd love to hear, more about how you've been working with them, both in the smaller doses and the larger doses.
Yeah, so of course, just like you said, like yeah, everyone's of course is different. I know for a fact that yeah, I'm a lightweight when it comes to like alcohol and cannabis, but mushrooms, I think, because it works more on the emotional body and the amount of like suppression I've had with my emotions, it takes a lot for me. So yeah, like a gram for me is like I'm pretty functional. Where I know like some friends, like it's like a gram is like ceremonial dose. So like for me, like my last ceremony I said I did on Thursday, I did 9 grams, which 2 weeks before that I had done 12, which was my biggest dose, and that was yeah, just so much going on. But yeah, so I had been just taking smaller doses, and smaller doses for me, enough to feel, and they weren't micro doses, of course, because I could actually feel the medicine affecting me, which is what I wanted, because like I said, it altered my consciousness, the way I thought about things. I could view things from different perspectives, which brought a lot of really good insight. So after that, I actually met, what was that? At one point I met a guy who was growing mushrooms, and his mushrooms were actually strong. It was awesome. It was like I was having my mushrooms, they were weak, and all the other mushrooms I had, and then we got these mushrooms, me and a friend, and it was funny, I was having like a potluck, and he comes over with these mushrooms, and we have like a gram. It was like so he came over earlier before we were supposed to have the potluck, and then we had a gram, and then it was like nothing got done. I had like meant to like make all this stuff and get all this stuff prepared, and these mushrooms just were so strong. It was just like, yeah, we're just like in the experience, like yeah, like I'm not functional to cook at this point. But yeah, so then that's when I like really started to work with them more ceremonially. Kind of going back to before, we were mentioning a little bit about community, but just I really started going into ceremony and working more healing traumas over the last year. Last year in the summer, I had realized, like, as I said, I didn't feel like I fit in a lot because I really didn't talk about emotions and stuff. I just feel like I just was so different from everyone else. And then I met the Collingwood community. A friend invited me out, told me there's this drum circle that happens like Sunday evenings at the waterfront, and I went down there and I just met a bunch of amazing people. And since then, it's like, yeah, this is my family. It's just beautiful people. And one of my friends does mushroom ceremonies. So I had done one with her, my first actual like real ceremony I had done last year in January. I guess it would have been this year. Yeah, last January, where I did 7 grams, and it was just huge. It was just amazing to like set intentions and just to lie there and be present with the medicine and going inwards, and it was so powerful to me. Like every experience I've had has been so powerful, but it all goes back to the childhood. You just start seeing certain situations that had happened in my childhood, including things that were conscious, a lot of unconscious stuff, but some situations I had been aware of. And like a certain situation that I had confronted my mom on, being like, this was so shitty that you did this. So I confronted her with that without the psychedelics. But it was like, so I went through it in that sense, and I'm trying to like move past it. But I think there was still that energetic blockage from this situation because that came up, and it was like a huge emotional release. So I think I had gone through it, like intellectually known that this was something huge, but then that the emotion was still attached to it. So I had taken the mushrooms and just like bawled for like 4 hours straight, but like underneath it all, it was just like this feeling of bliss I've never experienced, love and bliss I've never experienced in my life. And then I did, from there, every ceremony I've done since then, I think I've done like 5 big dose ceremonies since then, and everyone has been going back to childhood, a lot of it based around my mother. But everyone has been like this huge emotional release where I'm just crying, and but underneath it all, it's everyone I've had, it's all been just bliss and love. And I didn't even know, like, my intentions for my second ceremony was to feel love. I didn't know entirely what the feeling of love even was. So it's just like, to be able to experience this was just like absolutely incredible.
And you are so very loved. I felt so blessed and honored to be a part of your birthday today, or not today, but this year, and to meet your community and everything, Brian. Like, there was so much love and care, and yeah, it was just that bliss factor in the real world. It's the psychedelics may have been a vessel for that, but you're definitely encompassing it in your energy, even when you're not working with them. It shows.
Thank you. Yeah, and that's just something I have to move into, seeing more for myself. I do see that. I mean, my last ceremony, I was shown that. I think it's like acceptance of love for myself is my struggle, because I know I do have so much love I give. And just being able to accept it for myself is what I need to start working through.
And here's the thing too, like, there's a book out there called Body Keeps a Score, and it's a pretty big book. There's also, ones where you can use it as a workbook and things like that. But really, like, the biggest takeaway of it is that we all have this, childhood garbage, like this clutter from when we were kids. Some of it discovered, some of it undiscovered, but the body does hold it. And I think one of the most miraculous things that's happening, or the supernatural things that are happening here when we're working with these magic mushrooms or any psychedelic, is that gets released and brought to the surface, and we can purge that in the way of tears or sweat or feeling the nausea or anything. Automatically want to say that this is uncomfortable, but it's uncomfortable in the body too. So it's better to just feel the discomfort, get it out, allow that to just get out whatever form, and then that automatically opens and makes space for that love to then go through, or that light. I think a lot of it is bringing the light to that darkness. It's almost like the mushrooms, or a seed growing underground, and it has to struggle to find that light. Mushrooms, sometimes it's through lightning, and seeds, it's because they're like literally struggling to get to that light. And it's so much a fractal of us.
Yeah, I mean, everyone goes through it, right? I've definitely listened to a lot of Gabor Mate's talks, and as he says, I mean, you don't need him to confirm it, but we are a traumatized society. I've known that for a long time, right? We're so disconnected from nature. That's trauma, straight up, right from the beginning.
It's connected from our mother, our real mother, like the birth mother. Yeah, we do have a physical being mother, but there's also the Mother Earth. That's the mother of all of us, the mother of our parents, of our grandparents, of every ancestor that came before us. Every witch or wizard that was we're the ones that weren't burned at the stake. We're the survivors of all of that trauma, which is also blocked inside of us. And then we were disconnected from that, but all of that is there, and depending on which layers you're going here, we're able to unfold where it is we actually come from, and reinstill that connection to our mother, which is the earth, which is the plants, which is the fungi, which is the bugs. We're made of bugs, and everybody's putting on, what's that called? The hand sanitizer and stuff.
Yeah.
It's stop, you're a bug. You don't want to kill yourself.
Yeah. So much conditioning, and that's why mushrooms are amazing, because they just bring up the unconscious, so brings out the truth. That's what nature is good for, not even just I mean, so much of these truths that people come to through psychedelics are what I've come through just from nature. So you don't always need the psychedelics, but they're a fantastic tool. Like, I'm just gonna continue working with mushrooms always. Like, this whole winter, I'm not working right now. I'm actually looking. I have my website in the process right now, but besides hopefully getting some clients, I'm only working out at the climbing gym like once or twice a week. I plan to do a lot of inner work this winter.
So I've got a question for you, Brian. It's one that I ask every guest that we have on here, and that's, if I was to give you a dandelion to make a wish, what would that wish be? And it can be for yourself or for the collective, whatever comes to mind.
Well, that would be like to have 1,000 more wishes, of course.
Go to a field of dandelions. That's what Finn says, actually, when he goes out and sees the dandelions. He's like, look at all the wishes. You know, some people would look at that and be like, look at all those weeds. We got to pull them out. I'm like, I love that my son thinks like that. That's great. Sorry, go on.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, that's a huge question. You know, I mean, I think that we all are looking for happiness and love, and of course I'd love that to be what everyone can achieve, but I think ultimately the best thing I could wish for is for everyone to come back into alignment with Mother, with Gaia. We need that. We need that nature connection again, because if people can become connected back to nature, they can find their own truths. They don't need to be told what to do, but they will come to their own understanding, and then that's ultimately where the health is going to come to. You know, personal health and planetary health is just becoming connected back to nature. So that's what I wish for the world.
Thank you. You know, it's so possible too. You know, I think on a lot of levels it is happening. The more that we connect back to our roots, to Mama Nature, the more that we're then healing ourselves, and we are a part of nature. And then so that has a ripple effect that then, you know, helps somebody else, another part of nature, you know. And yeah, the network, or the mycelia, continues to grow and spread underground, you know, these grassroots movements.
Yeah, for sure. It's that ripple effect, definitely. Just by, you know, even just us working on ourselves, we create that change in that energetic field, the collective consciousness.
So how can everybody find you, Brian? I know you're building out your website now. But you also have an Instagram account, and you're working with Free Spirit Tours. What are some ways that they can contact you? I'll, of course, link that stuff below, but what else are you up to? How else can people get in touch?
Yeah, so as I was mentioning just now briefly, that I am currently getting my site together. I'm planning to have like my health history form up where people can find that on my site and start doing some health coaching for people. So I'm going to be doing the classic 6-month program. Not really entirely, just whatever generalist stuff right now. I mean, I just have so much knowledge to offer that I just need to start offering something, you know. So yeah, you'll be able to find me barefootbrian.ca. And then my Instagram, I'm on Instagram and Facebook, just Barefoot Brian Health for Instagram, and Barefoot Brian Natural Health for Facebook. So that's where you can reach me. Or if you want to reach me in person, you just gotta go look for me in the forest.
Yeah.
For the bare feet.
Just start asking for Barefoot Brian. It works. Honestly, you guys, I've done this. I've lost him a couple times, and that's all I say is like, Barefoot Brian, and like somebody starts yelling or they know where he is. It's great.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. I love it. Community. being in a smaller community is awesome like that, because it just seems like everyone knows everyone through the grapevine somehow. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
think
we definitely do get that.
Yeah, we went for a hike last time that I was there too, and on the way back, this couple's there at the water, and they're like, "Whoa, you're barefoot! You must be Barefoot Brian! I've been meaning to connect with you!" Starts going on. All of a sudden, there's like, beauty in the air, new creations happening. It's like great.
It's pretty humbling, to be honest. Like this year, like multiple times, I got like, I've just kind of introduced myself to someone. They're like, "Oh, you're the Barefoot Brian."
The Barefoot.
Like, I have an official title now.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Brian, for sharing your story here today. I know it's going to impact and inspire many of our, many lives here, including our listeners. So thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to all the good to come.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you so much for this opportunity. It was really great to get to share my story with you and the community.
Thank you. We'll talk soon, okay?
Sounds
Bye
good.
for now.
Bye.
Growing up, I had flat feet. And so I would go to the doctor, and then they would make these arch supports that basically are a mold of your flat foot, and then you walk on them, right? And these arch supports were supposed to correct my arches. Well, all they did is make me dependent on the arches, which I eventually got rid of when I was 19 years old, because I felt so much better when I didn't wear my corrective arches. Now, if your eyes are bad, you go see the eye doctor and you get corrective lenses, right? That basically never correct your eyes. Or if you have sleep apnea, you can go get this machine and you can actually put this mask on and it'll give you a constant air supply so you can sleep better, right? Is that going to correct anything? No, it's a way of coping with the situation. Or if you have high blood pressure, you can go to the doctor and they have a medication for that. Does that ever correct anything? No, it manages the symptoms, right? And that's pretty much what healthcare is nowadays. It's not correcting anything, it's managing your symptoms. And that's why I do all these videos, to help you understand things to do to correct the problem, so you're not dependent on something. And that leads us to today's topic, the benefits of walking barefoot. In your foot, you have 26 bones. You have 33 joints in 19 different muscles. It's a very highly complex part of your body that allows you to move, and it supports your entire body weight. So if you weigh 200, 250, or 300 or 350 pounds, it's a lot of weight on these little feet. Now, a very big problem is these darn shoes that you have to wear, okay? Here's the problem with shoes. They're very, very unnatural. They compress your toes. I mean, some people actually buy shoes that are pointed. So they're trying to put these toes into this space that just doesn't fit the toes. Naturally, the toes should be wider, okay? So when you're constantly compressing these toes, then that creates a lot of problems with your gait, with your balance, with your muscles in your calves and your feet, and that translates up to the knees. So wearing shoes actually increases the risk of getting knee pain and low back pain just because of the altered dynamics of your foot. First of all, we're raising the foot above the ground, so we're losing communication with the ground, making things very unstable. And so the bottom of your foot is really communicating with the ground through a via, right? Through like a sponge cushion. And if you wear a high heel, that's even worse. I bought some dress shoes that were $300 when I was in practice, and they were the most uncomfortable shoe that I ever wore, but I didn't want to get rid of them because they cost so much. But I remember coming home at the end of the day, my feet were killing me. They were so uncomfortable. So since you spend the majority of the day in shoes, it's very important to get shoes that are very comfortable. The shoes that I'm going to recommend are those shoes that fit in the category of the barefoot footwear. So I bought a series of shoes that are closer to the ground, that provide more space for my toes. They're wider, okay? And they're much more comfortable, and they force the foot to work harder. But that's a very good thing because it creates more stability. So wearing the wrong type of shoes in general cause the reduction of range of motion. They increase the temperature of your feet. They basically cook your feet in this small space. They create knee adduction. That means the knees tend to go inward, and that can throw off the dynamics of the knee, increasing the risk of knee pain. I already mentioned the low back pain. Your Achilles tendon becomes more stiff. That's that tendon in the back part of the lower ankle, and that's going to affect your ability to move and play sports. It's going to reduce your circulation, and it can even shorten the calf length, okay, and create atrophy of your muscles in your calf if you wear high heels. There's one study done that shows that if your heel is greater than 5 centimeters and you wear this high heel for over 2 years, there's significant reduction in your size of your calf muscles and the strength of your calf muscles. So the longer you wear these type of shoes, you lose the strength of your foundation, which can affect the rest of the body. Because as you know, the ankle bone's connected to the knee bone, which is connected to the hip bone, etc., etc. All right, now there's 2 things I'm going to recommend. First of all, start looking for a shoe that has less of a heel, that's closer to the ground, and that provides more space on your toes so you can have more stability, okay? That's number 1. Number 2, start walking barefoot on the grass and the sand. This is a very therapeutic exercise that at first your feet are going to get tired, but then the feet are going to get stronger, and you're going to find that there's much less stress on your joints. So let's go right into the benefits of walking barefoot. Number 1, your toes finally have a chance to spread out, okay? Just from that alone, that can prevent these toes that become malaligned and create all sorts of issues with your gait. Number 2, more communication with the ground is better. And so the mechanical receptors, the receptors on the bottom of your foot, if they're in direct communication with the grass or the sand or whatever surface, that information is going to be picked up and sent through the body to your brain, and you're going to be way more stable. You're going to actually be very surprised on how the rest of your body is going to feel once your foundation is really connected to the ground. So you'll find a decreased load on your joints, more range of motion, and more stability and balance. Now, if you have not watched my video on plantar fasciitis, that would be a really good next video to watch. Check it out, it's right here.
I've been foraging for as long as I can remember. It's really amazing when you look around and see the variety of things that you can eat, and not just eat, but enjoy, make a great meal out of. This is a plant that has been equated to the supermarket in the woods. These are cattails. Pound for pound, cattail has more protein than a lot of plants. Oh, that's a good one. So when you pick these, it's this big, you're only going to eat this much out of the center. The rest of it's real tough. So this part right here can be eaten raw, and it's a very agreeable flavor. Right here behind us is a black walnut tree. If you look on this branch right here, you see those mushrooms? They're wood ear mushrooms. It kind of looks like an ear. These things really come out after a good rain. This is just one little branch full of wood ear. This is garlic mustard, and if you were to take a young leaf and chew it, immediately you would know why they call it garlic mustard. There's a garlic flavor, mustard flavor. This makes a great pesto. You can basically strip the seed pods off in your hand and kind of winnow the chaff away, and you'll have these little black seeds. Grind up, use it as a pretty good pepper substitute. Have you guys ever tried these before? This is black locust. Black locust produces our #1 grade A honey. This is what the bees collect the pollen from. But these blossoms have a phenomenal floral fragrance. It's like perfume when they're in blossom, and they taste great. All right, let's go have lunch. And you ask how you know which plants to eat, sometimes if you listen real close, plants might tell you. So these are cattails. We're only going to use the inner part of this, really tender part, almost like a palm heart. It's quite good, just like that. But we're going to cook this up. We're going to take some garlic mustard. So I'm just going to break this up, and by bruising it, you're going to release a lot more flavor to it. So these are wood ear mushrooms. This is something that you find often in Chinese cuisine, sweet and sour soup. Now these are good to eat by themselves, as we experienced outside. Black locust flowers. They're great. They really are. It's going to give it a nice little floral twist to it. So this was an area that was brand new to me in terms of foraging. And it just really goes to show that you can go almost anywhere and find plants that you can eat. And now it's time to eat.
Did you know your garden is hiding all sorts of nutritional and medicinal gems? From curing heartburn, cystitis, and coughs to providing free protein, vitamins, and minerals, common weeds have some truly amazing benefits. Sadly, most people simply dig them up, mow them down, or kill them in various ways. Why not take a look at what's really growing in your backyard? You might just think twice about adding them to the compost heap. 1. Dandelion. Dandelion has been used throughout history for treating everything from liver problems and kidney disease to heartburn and appendicitis. Today, it is mainly used as a diuretic, appetite stimulant, and for the liver and gallbladder. Every part of this common weed is edible, from the roots to the blossoms. Use the leaves in sandwiches and stir-fries. They boast more beta-carotene than carrots, meaning they are great for healthy eyes. Roots can be made into a herbal tea, or roasted and ground as a coffee substitute. 2. Purslane. A nutritional powerhouse, purslane contains more omega-3 fatty acids than any other leafy vegetable. It's rich in vitamin A, C, E, as well as magnesium, calcium, potassium, and iron. In traditional Chinese medicine, purslane leaves are used for insect bites and bee stings, sores, diarrhea, and hemorrhoids. With a somewhat sour and salty flavor, it is an acquired taste, but works great in soups and stews. Try breading and frying the leaves for a tempura-style side dish. 3. Stinging nettle. Another popular medicinal weed. You'll require gloves or thick skin when picking this. It's used for urination problems and kidney stones, joint ailments, and as a diuretic. The leaves are also said to help fight allergies and hay fever.
Listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20, it's so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partner 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420, enjoy a pop freezy. Lab tested products, make them the GOAT. Legacy 420 out on your road. Legacy 420 in Tyndonega Mohawk territory. Indigenous organic cannabis at its finest.
What do you find at paceradio.net? People advocating cannabis education.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at Pace Radio.